The great hall of the Crimson Moon Pack was filled with light and music on the night of the moon ceremony. Silver banners hung from the wooden beams, and the scent of pine and burning candles drifted through the air. Every wolf in the territory had gathered, dressed in their finest clothes, waiting for the moment the moon would rise high enough to reveal the fated mates among them. Elena Voss stood near the back of the hall, apart from the crowd. She was not born into the Crimson Moon Pack. Her home, a small pack near the eastern hills, had been destroyed months earlier in a border war. She and a handful of survivors had been taken in by the Crimson Moon Pack out of duty, not kindness. She wore a plain gray dress, her dark hair pulled back simply, and she tried to make herself as small as possible in a room full of strangers. She had heard the stories about Alpha King Damian Ashwood before she ever saw his face. They said he was strong enough to hold 3 territories under his rule. They said his eyes were the color of storm clouds, and that no wolf had ever challenged him and lived to boast about it. They also said he had not looked at another woman since his first mate died years ago, betrayed by someone she trusted, in a manner still spoken of only in whispers. When the moon reached its peak, the hall grew quiet. Damian stepped onto the raised platform at the front, tall and composed, his dark hair catching the candlelight. He scanned the crowd the way a king always did during the ceremony, searching for the pull that would tell him his mate had arrived. Elena felt it before she understood it. A warmth spread through her chest, sudden and undeniable, pulling her gaze upward until her eyes met his. The room seemed to fall away. Her wolf stirred inside her, alert and joyful, recognizing something Elena's human mind was still trying to accept. Mate. Damian felt it too. She saw it in the way his shoulders stiffened, the way his jaw tightened as if bracing against a blow. For one heartbeat, something flickered across his face that might have been wonder. Then it vanished, replaced by a coldness so complete it silenced the joy blooming in her chest. "I reject you as my mate," he said, his voice carrying across the hall without effort. "The bond is broken." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Rejection was not unheard of, but it was rare, and it was always cruel. Everyone knew what it meant for the wolf who received it. A wound that could take years to heal, sometimes one that never healed at all. Elena felt the words strike her like a physical blow. Her wolf whimpered, confused and hurt, but beneath the pain, something else stirred. A quiet, steady voice inside her that refused to accept what she had just heard. She lifted her chin. The entire hall was staring at her, waiting for her to run, to cry, to do whatever a rejected wolf was supposed to do. Instead, she took a slow breath and spoke, her voice smaller than his but just as clear. "You can reject me," she said, "but the bond is not only yours to break. I do not accept it." The silence that followed was heavier than any sound could have been. No one in living memory had ever refused a king's rejection. Damian's eyes narrowed, something unreadable passing through them, but before he could respond, Elena turned and walked out of the hall, her back straight, her steps unhurried, though her heart pounded so hard she thought the whole pack might hear it. She did not cry until she reached the edge of the forest, alone beneath the trees, where no one could see her shaking shoulders. But even then, the strange steadiness inside her did not disappear. It felt as if something ancient had settled into her bones that night, waiting. In the days that followed, Elena kept to herself, working in the pack's kitchens and gardens, trying to ignore the whispers that followed her wherever she went. Some wolves looked at her with pity, others looked at her with a kind of caution, as though she had done something dangerous by refusing the king. But something was changing in her. She noticed it first in small ways. Her senses sharpened beyond what she remembered. She could hear conversations from rooms away, smell the coming rain hours before the clouds arrived. Her wolf, usually quiet and unassuming, now paced restlessly beneath her skin, eager for something Elena could not name. At night, she dreamed of a forest bathed in silver light, ancient trees stretching toward a sky full of stars that did not match any sky she had seen awake. A woman's voice moved through the dream, like wind through leaves, calling her by a name that was not quite her own. Chosen. She woke each morning with the word echoing in her mind, unsure whether to be afraid or comforted by it. 10 days after the ceremony, the pack gathered for a training exercise in the eastern field, where young wolves practiced controlled shifting under the supervision of the pack elders. Elena had been assigned to assist, mostly fetching water and tending to minor injuries, tasks fitting for someone of her low rank. She was kneeling beside a young wolf who had scraped his paw on a rock when it happened. A sudden pressure built behind her ribs, sharp and insistent, like something inside her demanding to be let out. She tried to breathe through it, the way she had been taught, but the pressure only grew, spreading through her limbs until her vision blurred at the edges. Before she could stop it, her wolf broke free. The shift happened faster and more forcefully than any shift she had ever experienced, her body dissolving and reforming in the space of a single breath. When she rose onto four paws, gasps rang out across the field. Elena did not understand why until she caught her reflection in the still water of a nearby trough. Her eyes, usually a plain brown, now glowed with a soft, unmistakable silver light. The pack elders went still. One of them, an old woman named Mother Yara, who had served 3 generations of alphas, slowly lowered herself to her knees, her weathered hands pressed against the earth. "The mark," Mother Yara whispered, her voice trembling. "The goddess's mark." Word spread through the pack faster than fire through dry grass. Elena, still stunned and half-shifted back into her human form, found herself surrounded by elders who spoke of legends she had only heard as bedtime stories, tales of a chosen Luna, blessed directly by the goddess herself, born to guide a pack when it stood at a crossroads between ruin and renewal. The stories said such a wolf appeared only once in many generations, and that her bond, once formed, could not be broken by any alpha, no matter how powerful. Damien arrived at the field just as the crowd parted to make way for him. He stopped short at the sight of Elena, her eyes still faintly glowing, Mother Yara kneeling before her. "This is nonsense," he said, though his voice lacked its usual certainty. "A trick of the light, nothing more." But even as he spoke, his own wolf stirred beneath his skin, and to the shock of everyone present, Damien felt an unfamiliar pull, not the desperate ache of the mate bond he had tried to sever, but something deeper, older, a call to submission that no Alpha King had felt in generations. His wolf lowered its head without his permission, a silent acknowledgement he could not explain away. He could deny many things. He could not deny his own wolf. Over the following weeks, Elena's new place in the pack settled into an uneasy balance. She was given quarters near the pack elders, treated with a respect that unsettled her as much as it comforted her. She trained not with claws and teeth, but with meditation and old texts, learning to understand the powers that had awakened within her, a calmness that could soothe an angry wolf, a clarity that let her sense truth from lies, and a quiet strength that drew others to her without her ever raising her voice. Damien kept his distance, though she often felt his eyes on her from across the training grounds or the dining hall. He was a king struggling with pride that had ruled his heart for years, unwilling to admit that the bond he tried to destroy had not weakened, but grown stronger, carried now by something far greater than either of them. The tension broke when word arrived that Alpha Cassian of the Iron Fang Pack was requesting a meeting under the pretense of discussing a trade agreement between their territories. Damien agreed, unaware that Cassian had heard the rumors of a goddess's chosen Luna living among the Crimson Moon Pack, and intended to see the truth for himself. Cassian arrived with a small procession, his smile polite but his eyes calculating as they moved over the pack, searching. When he finally saw Elena standing near the elders during the welcoming feast, something sharpened in his expression, a hunger poorly hidden behind courtesy. He approached her later that evening, away from the crowd, his voice smooth as he spoke of alliances and shared strength, of how a wolf with her gifts deserved a king who would elevate her properly, rather than one who had already rejected her once. Elena listened, her new senses prickling with warning, catching the threads of deception woven carefully through his words. "You are trying to convince me," she said quietly, "of something even you do not believe." Cassian's polite mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the ambition beneath it, before he excused himself, clearly unsettled that she had seen through him so easily. That night, Cassian revealed his true intentions. Believing that claiming a goddess's chosen Luna could grant him power beyond his own pack's borders, he attempted to corner Elena near the sacred grove at the edge of the territory. a place forbidden to outsiders without permission. His words turned demanding, his patience thin, as he tried to force a decision from her that was never his to ask for. Elena refused to be afraid. She stood her ground, and as Cassian took a threatening step closer, the grove around them responded to her distress. Ancient vines stirred along the trees, and a soft silver light rose from the ground beneath her feet, the same light that had once glowed in her eyes. Cassian froze, suddenly aware that he had gravely misjudged the wolf standing before him. It was Damien who found them moments later, drawn by an instinct he could not ignore, some invisible thread pulling him straight to the grove. He arrived to find Cassian retreating, shaken, from a woman who had not needed saving, but who deserved to be protected all the same. Damien's fury was quiet but absolute. He ordered Cassian and his procession to leave Crimson Moon territory before sunrise, the alliance broken beyond repair. But it was what happened after Cassian's departure that mattered most. Standing in the sacred grove, moonlight filtering through the ancient trees, Damien finally allowed himself to say what he had been too proud, too afraid, to admit since the night of the ceremony. "I was wrong to reject you," he said, his voice rough with an emotion he rarely let others see. "I told myself it was to protect the pack. The truth is, I was afraid of losing someone the way I lost before. But I see now that pushing you away did not protect anyone. It only left me standing alone." Elena studied him for a long moment, the silver light in her eyes softening. "I did not refuse your rejection because I needed you," she said gently. "I refused it because I knew, somewhere inside myself, that what we had was real, even if you were too frightened to accept it. I am not asking you to be perfect. I am only asking you to be honest." Damien closed the distance between them slowly, giving her every chance to step away if she wished. She did not. When he finally reached for her hand, the bond between them settled into place, no longer fragile or half-formed, but whole, steady, and true. Word of what happened in the sacred grove spread through the pack by morning. Damien stood before the gathered wolves, Elena at his side, and formally reaffirmed the mate bond he had once tried to break, this time not as a king fulfilling duty, but as a man honoring a bond he finally understood he could not live without. Mother Yara led the pack in the old blessing reserved for a true Luna, her voice carrying across the crowd as wolves knelt in respect, not out of fear of a king's authority, but out of reverence for a woman who had refused to be diminished, even when the world told her she had no right to stand tall. In the months that followed, Elena grew into her role, not simply as Luna of the Crimson Moon Pack, but as a figure respected across pack lines, known for the fairness of her judgment and the quiet strength of her presence. Damien ruled beside her, no longer as a king guarding his throne alone, but as a partner who had learned that true strength was not found in rejecting connection, but in having the courage to accept it. On quiet evenings, Elena often stood at the cliffside overlooking the territory, her wolf resting peacefully beside her, watching the sun set over the land she now called home. She thought sometimes of the girl who had once been humiliated in front of an entire pack, who had walked away with her head held high, despite the pain in her chest. She was not that girl anymore. She was Luna Elena, chosen not because someone else decided her worth, but because she had refused to let anyone else decide it for her. And as the last light faded over the hills, Damien's hand found hers, steady and sure, a quiet promise that neither of them intended to break again.